Correct. So in this case, the user is looking at a time period between 10 a.m. and 11 a.m. And the health data that's been pulled from the database has been aggregated. And it tells you that there's 98 samples being considered. The maximum heart rate during that hour-long period was 108. The distance travelled was approximately 759 meters. And there were 5 flights climbed within that hour.
And then below that, you break that down a little further, correct?
Correct. So this is further down the screen in the interface, where we can see actual time of 10:17:27, where there's 2 flights climbed. And again, another record at 10:17:28, where there were 2 flights climbed, and then a further flight climb at 10:49.
And then going down to the bottom here, this table, what are we seeing here in this table?
So you may have realized in the slide above where there was 2 flight climbs at 17 seconds past and 2 flight climbs at 18 seconds past. That's an unrealistic measurement. It's because one of those measurements comes from the phone and one comes from the watch. The text after the cue, how quickly does Wellbutrin work, is what the user searched. Typically that is exactly as the user typed it, assuming that there are no auto-completions in place. In this particular case, it appears it was searched using Safari, so there's no auto-completion. That is essentially what the user typed in. And then the title, how quickly does Wellbutrin, I can't say that word, I'm afraid. Wellbutrin, thank you. Work for depression, Google search is the title of the page which Google assigns.
So where it says after the cue, how plus, quickly plus, does plus, the user's not putting in those pluses, correct? Is that, what were you calling those?
So that's part of the attribute. It's how the data is encoded in a URL or in a web search. You can't have spaces within this address string, so they replace the spaces with the plus symbol.
So I type in how quickly does, and the computer adds the pluses in the space marks? Yes,
it's URL encoding to make it safe for the browser.
And then at 7:49, there's a search for Lamictal for depression.
Yes, and depression spelled with a B at the end instead of an N, which demonstrates that this is what the user typed in rather than a page that was being visited.
And then a few minutes later at 7:55 p.m., the user typed in Elavil for depression, correct?
Correct.
And what we have here at 5:33 p.m., we have the flight climb started, is that correct?
Correct.
And flight climb ended at 5:38, so
yes.
That line again connecting them?
Correct. So 2 flight climbs occurred during that time period.
And in between when the flight climb started and the flight climb ended, you have the 2 calls, the incoming call that was missed from Patrick and then the outgoing call to Patrick, correct?
Correct.
So the first flight climbed had already been started. Someone had already started climbing up a flight of stairs when that first unanswered call happened, correct?
So flight climb started is how it's listed within the database and within the software. But it actually, the flight climb time is when the flight climb has been recognized by the device as the device has already climbed up those stairs.
It was decided towards the end of May of 26 by the appeals court in Massachusetts. It was a case out of the Boston Municipal Court where defendant was charged with assault and battery on a police officer. The evidence was presented that the defendant was acting erratically and that there was an awful lot of evidence that indicated that, brought out on cross-examination from witnesses, that the defendant was suffering from some type of a mental illness. Based on that evidence being presented, the government rested their case, just as they've done here. My suggestion to the court is that the evidence that's been presented on this case against Ms. Clancy I would suggest does not rise to the level under Rule 25 of where even if you take the Lattimore standard and determine that the evidence would be decided in the light most favorable to the government at this stage of the case, I think the Brunette-Silvera case places, as they describe it, a negative obligation to prove a negative as part of their case in chief on the government. I suggest to Your Honor that the evidence that has been presented in this case is overwhelming, that this young woman was clearly and unequivocally suffering from a mental disease or defect, that it was occupying her waking hours, her life, that she considered all of her avenues. She attempted to go to these healthcare providers, using the term loosely, that she went to these people. She had medication after medication after medication. She was obviously acting, I suggest to the court, in a state that was observed by witnesses that, in fact, that she was suffering from mental disease or defect, and then ultimately this horrific incident. So under that Brunette-Silvera case, there's no evidence, I suggest, from the government that would rebut the fact that there is evidence of lack of criminal responsibility. So under Brunette-Silvera and the cases that were cited in that opinion, respectfully, I would suggest that a required finding of not guilty should be entered on the case. I also would argue to the court that I think that under the Brunette-Silvera standard and the evidence that Your Honor has before you, that the matter should be reduced down, if you will, from premeditated malice and forethought, cruelty and atrocity to second degree. I'm not arguing at this stage Commonwealth versus Gray or any of its progeny as to manslaughter, but I think the court, certainly in its wise exercise of discretion, has the ability and the right to reduce the charge to second-degree murder or enter a required finding.
All right, counsel, thank you. Come on.
Thank you, Your Honor. The case that defense counsel cited, there was a presentation of the Commonwealth's evidence. Commonwealth rested. Defense called an expert who said that the defendant was not criminally responsible, and the Commonwealth relied on a cross-examination of that witness and did not call any further witnesses. So the motion was filed for a required finding at the close of all of the evidence, which is what's required under Commonwealth versus Lawson, which Brunette-Silva cites and is still good law. An SJC case, 475 Mass 806 from 2016, in which the court says that a motion for a required finding of not guilty by reason of lack of criminal responsibility may only be brought at the close of all of the evidence, not at the close of the Commonwealth's case. In this case, as you're aware, defense plans on presenting experts who testified that the defendant was not criminally responsible, and then the Commonwealth will have a rebuttal case with their own experts. So I think the time and place for the motion would be at the close of all of the evidence and not now.
All right. Well, I had an opportunity to take a look at Brunette-Silvera. So based on that and based on the standard as described that I have to apply at this point, I'm going to deny the defendant's motion.
I mean, did she like being a nurse? Did she want to work, or was she a good nurse? What's your opinion?
Lindsay loved being a nurse. She was really good at being a nurse. She was compassionate. She was kind. She was a patient advocate. She was the type of nurse that you wanted taking care of you or your loved one when you walked onto our unit.
Did you observe, for example, that on occasion when she would be involved with the delivery of a baby, that she would become emotional?
Lindsay was often emotional during birth of complete strangers. She would cry and she would just say that was so beautiful. You could just tell that she really loved being in that setting.
Over those years, right up until the time of Callan being born, fair to say that you stayed friendly with her?
Yes.
And you're still friendly with her?
Yes.
Can you tell us, did you observe during the time you worked with her how she emoted or felt about her children, all three of them?
Yes.
Tell us anything that you recall.
So Lindsay and I worked the night shift together, and often on the night shift you get to have an opportunity to really get to know your coworkers and celebrate things that are happening in their lives or support them with things that are not going so well. Lindsay asked a lot of questions of her coworkers about parenting. Simple things as she would poll the nursing staff about monogrammed lunch boxes, right down to sleeping habits. What questions do you ask a daycare provider to make sure that you're in the right place? She was often asking her coworkers childcare, parenting tips. Yes.
Yeah, tell us about that.
Lindsay often checked in on her kids while they were sleeping at night. Again, we worked the night shift, and she had the ability to look at her phone and see what Cora or Callan were doing in their cribs, and she shared that with a lot of us. There was one particular night that Cora was crying. She was probably about 6 months old, and Lindsay never let Cora cry. She wasn't at that point in parenting, and she was very communicative about that. And Cora was crying on the monitor. It was the middle of the night, and maybe after 10 minutes, she started to call Pat, and he wasn't answering. And she got really worried that one, Cora was crying, but now Pat wasn't answering his phone. So in the middle of the night, she called the police to do a wellness check on her family.
Okay. And while you were working the night shift, is that pretty much what you both worked together all those years?
Yes.
Would that be through the pandemic as well?
Yes.
Would you say that that was quite a bonding experience, being in labor delivery up close and personal with patients during the pandemic at night?
Of course, it was a very challenging time as a healthcare provider.
Overnight, you were aware that the police responded and everything was fine, right?
Yes.
And you worked with her through 2022 when she went out with leave on Callan?
Correct.
And you never visited their house after Callan was born, did you?
No.
You don't know what was going on in her life, did you?
No.
And she didn't share any of her struggles with you via text or in any other capacity, did she?
No.
And as a labor and delivery nurse, and having been trained in labor and delivery, and you said you worked obstetrics before, correct?
Correct.
Is it fair to say that you often have patients that come to you in both those areas that have some mental illness or are on psychiatric medications, right?
Sometimes.
And working labor and delivery, you have some training on how to handle patients that are on certain types of medications, right?
Limited training, yes.
Well, it affects how you're going to go through a birth plan or do a delivery if a person is on some sort of long-term medication, right?
Right.
And so you're aware that Zoloft is something that's deemed safe for pregnant moms and breastfeeding moms?
Yes.
And you've had patients that have dealt with bipolar issues before?
Yes.
And that they have to remain medication compliant in order to manage those things, right?
Yes.
Thank you. Nothing further.
All right, Ms. Brayton?
So your experience dealing with patients that have birth to child, as the district attorney asked, and are on Zoloft and expressing issues of being a parent, were you aware of any incidents where Lindsay was with you and a woman did in fact express concern that she wanted to hurt herself or her child?
There was a particular patient that Lindsay was on staff when this patient arrived. It was a patient that arrived to the unit that had plans to harm herself while she was pregnant. And we had a conversation. Lindsay was brand new. It was the summer that she had just started. And we had a conversation about mental health in pregnancy and postpartum. And I asked her if she had ever heard of the Andrea Yates case, and she hadn't. And I explained that to her, and she cried. And she said, "How could a mother hurt her children?"
let's direct our attention to, let's say, Thanksgiving 2022. Had you noticed any change in Lindsay's personality or any observation of how she appeared to you?
I will say on Thanksgiving in particular is when the first time I saw her in person after quite some time. I had known she had not been doing well via text message communication that we had. I think on Thanksgiving, she, her mood did not look good, her energy, she didn't seem very energized. It definitely seemed off from how I've seen her in the past.
And were you aware that that carried through from November into December, around the holiday season, if you had stayed in touch with her?
Yes.
And can you tell us what you observed about her around the holiday season as it related to her, from your observations and your texting and your communications with Lindsay? How did she appear to you at that point?
The beginning of December, it seemed like she very much decompensated. I do remember her saying at one point at the beginning of December, something along the lines of, I'm in a really tough spot. And knowing what she had shared with me previously about how her mental health had been struggling, I had this gut feeling that something was off and that she was really struggling, and I asked her if she was safe.
What did she say?
She said yes at that point.
And you knew her husband, Pat?
Yes.
And you knew the kids?
Yes.
Obviously. Do you recall around Christmas itself, and perhaps a little bit thereafter, that you spoke with her and that she indicated, basically, I'm not doing okay?
Yes.
Can you tell the jury what you observed about her demeanor or her symptomology when you said she was decompensating around that time? What were they symptoms in your mind of?
Based on communication with Lindsay, and I started communicating with Pat directly at that time, she was reporting her mood was worsening, as she described as depression. She was having more suicidal thoughts. Insomnia continued to be an issue. She was really not feeling like herself.
Was she a complainer?
No.
And obviously, she didn't share with you in detail her doctors and medicines and things of that nature. Is that fair?
No.
But you were aware of the struggles and the hurt that she was going through.
Yes.
And then through the month of January, did you have occasion to see her, or were you, because you still live in different states?
Yes. Yes, I did have an occasion to see her in January.
When?
We went to Cora's birthday party.
And that was at the trampoline park?
Yes.
How did she appear at that?
I think she looked like she was going through the motions of putting together a birthday party for her daughter, but she looked tired. She looked like she was still struggling.
So there was a difference in your observation of what you had known your sister to have as a personality?
Yes.
And then, of course, the horrible day, were you aware, or did somebody call you and tell you that the children had been killed?
Yes.
One of them still survived and ultimately passed.
Yes.
And do you recall who told you that?
Yes.
Who was that?
My mother.
And as a result of getting the call from your mother, what did you do?
I jumped in the car, packed a bag, and I sped up to South Shore Hospital, which is where I was told she was.
Did you see her in South Shore Hospital?
No.
Did you know that she was then transferred to another hospital after South Shore?
Yes.
And what hospital was that?
I believe it was Brigham and Women's.
And were you able to visit her in Brigham and Women's?
Yes.
And did it take some time before they would allow you to visit with her?
Yes.
How long, if you know?
I think it was approximately 2 weeks.
Tell us about Lindsay when she was a kid. Was she a good kid, good student, that type of thing?
She was a very good kid and an excellent student. Very excellent student all through school, through high school, college. Yes, excellent.
Ever been in trouble, law enforcement or schools or discipline or anything?
No.
Were you aware of her husband, Pat?
Yes.
And obviously you knew when they got married and when they were dating and things of that
Yes.
nature, right? Went to the wedding, obviously.
Yes.
Fair to say that you were close to your daughter and Pat,
Yes.
and you knew, obviously, the grandchildren?
Yes.
Tell the jury how you interacted and felt about your grandchildren.
I loved my grandchildren with all my heart. And you never know what it's like to love a grandchild until you become a grandmother. And it was the most beautiful thing. I love them with all my heart.
Now, did you have occasion to see how Lindsay reacted and treated her kids as a mother?
Yes.
And granted that you're her mother, so you're obviously biased, tell the jury what observations you made of Lindsay as a mother through the years after Cora was born, and then Dawson, and then, of course, baby Callan.
Lindsay was a very loving mother. She was dedicated to her children. She was a fun mother. She was always doing things for her kids. She always wanted to be a mother, have many children, and I felt it was the best thing that ever happened to her. And she would do anything for her children. She was just a loving mother. She would mention that this wasn't her mind. She would say to me, this isn't me, I've never been like this before. And I would agree because she wasn't. She was attempting to go through the motions of her day, take care of the kids as best she could. She didn't want to drive. So at times when Pat didn't go pick the kids up at school, I would drive Lindsay to pick the kids up at school because she was afraid to drive.
Did she express to you concern that in this time frame that people at the school, teachers and other people would be able to know what she was thinking and would think that she wasn't a good mother because she was sick?
Yes, she said, the school knows something's going on because I'm not driving my car. They see that I'm not driving my car to pick the kids up.
Do you recall the end of January that she made a statement to you about the medication, in her opinion, what it was doing to her mind?
Yes.
What did she say?
She said that she couldn't remember anything. The medication was pretty much just destroying her mind, and it wasn't her. She said, this isn't me. I just want to feel better and enjoy my kids again.
Now, I know that this is difficult. In December of 2022, do you recall the time that you were in the kitchen with Lindsay and Patrick and she made a statement about her state of mind to her husband, Pat, and you were there?
Yes.
I know it's difficult. Just tell us what you remember.
I remember her being very nervous. I remember her saying, I just have to tell you guys something. And then she told us.
What did she tell you?
She told us that she had thoughts of harming the children.
You talked about a time when you went to her home and you actually ended up sleeping with her because she didn't want to be alone. Was that October 20th visit?
No.
When was that?
That was, I can't exactly remember when. I'm going to say probably sometime in November, the latter part of November, maybe the early part of December.
Did she tell you why she was afraid to be alone?
She said she just said she was afraid to be alone. And one reason, I believe, she said she didn't know if she was going to be able to sleep, but mainly she was afraid to be alone.
And at that point in time, did you consider having her committed to a psychiatric facility?
No.
And did you feel the need to call 911 that day or get her immediate assistance?
No.
She was able to do activities and hang out with you and your husband. There's a photograph and evidence of the two of you sitting on the couch smiling and hanging out together. So you were able to interact with her, correct?
Correct. The photograph was taken by Cora because Cora wanted to use my phone and take her picture, so Lindsay and I were going to put a smile on our face and let Cora take a picture. Yes, but again, there was other observations I made that weekend, but it was not, I didn't think it was in Lindsay's best interest to discourage her or point out those, because she was making every attempt to feel better and to do things to make herself feel better. So as a mother, I was encouraging her.
Now, in your experience for a number of years in the emergency room, have you had occasion to treat people that have tried to commit suicide or successfully committed suicide by cutting their throat?
Multiple times.
Multiple times. And can you tell us, in your opinion, to a reasonable degree of medical certainty, sir, as to whether or not this injury or these injuries that you observed were consistent with what you've seen in other suicide attempts?
Sustained.
Well, can you tell us, did that look like an effort to pretend or fake a suicide?
Sustained.
Well, when you looked at the injuries, did you make a determination that they appeared to have some impact on the human body of Ms. Clancy?
Yes.
What was that?
They were consistent with self-injurious behavior. The intent, I can't gauge, but.
Anything further?
Okay.
Next question.
Yep, thank you.
She was very nurturing, very loving. She was a wonderful mother, wonderful.
Did you ever see her treat her middle son, Dawson, bad because he didn't like him?
No.
Did she love Dawson, in your opinion?
She loved her children, all of them, very, very much.
And during that period of time, in, let's say October, November of 2022, what did you observe about Lindsay?
She reached out to me in November and told me that she felt unwell.
Did she describe any symptoms for you?
She did.
Tell the jurors what she said.
She felt, mostly she had insomnia. She was losing her appetite. She was very anxious and sad.
Did she tell you that she was seeing doctors?
Yes.
And at some point, did you recommend, did she come to you and ask you for help regarding seeing a doctor?
Yeah, she asked for my support.
And did you obviously gave it to her?
Yes.
And what did you do to make any recommendations for her?
I reached out to my colleagues who were running a clinic for women that were struggling postpartum.
She was offered help and would just spurn it and not see doctors and not have
She was
treatment?
begging for help.
And during that period of time, you were there for her by text and by telephone and in person?
Correct.
Now, during that time that you were, let's say November and into December, the holiday season, do you recall the holidays for 2022?
Yes.
Can you tell us, was that a fun time for the Clancys?
Lindsay was struggling. We were all very concerned.
And fair to say, she indicated to you that she was having trouble sleeping and she had some heart palpitations.
Correct.
And that's what brought her to the emergency room to get checked out.
Yes.
Did she tell you that she had consumed a weed gummy before going to the ER that day?
She did not.
Okay. And in your experience as a nurse, is that sometimes a reaction to THC or CBD or some sort of weed that somebody might have a faster heartbeat?
I don't know.
Now, when she was in the emergency room, she was seen by a doctor and provided some medication. Were you there when the doctor was there?
Yes.
And you're aware that the doctor, the ER doctor, gave her some trazodone to help her sleep?
Yes.
Because that's what she was really concerned about, right? The sleep.
Yes.
And when she left the emergency room, did you call her an Uber or have Pat come and get her or call your husband to come get her?
No.
She left in her own car, right?
Correct.
Did the kids come to stay at your house overnight so that she could get some sleep?
No, they didn't.
Fair to say you offered and she didn't want the kids to come to your house, right?
No, that's not right.
Well, were they, did they ever sleep over your house?
No, they didn't.
And Cora was 5, right?
Yes, correct. She turned 5 that December.
So at any point, they never stayed over?
We decided together it was best for them to be in their own beds at their own house with all their belongings. And Lindsay's parents were very actively involved in staying over and helping out. So it was the best decision that they stay home in their own beds.
So prior to the November of 2022, did you and your husband ever come and stay over the night so that Patrick and Lindsay could go off?
We never did stay at their house.
Are you an active member in the Catholic Church?
Yes.
So you're aware that murder is considered a mortal sin?
Yeah, Counsel, could I see you over here? Means is you are not to consider it for any reason or any purpose, okay?
And you said, I think she was begging for help, right?
She was.
Did you attend any of those meetings with her, therapists or doctors?
No.
So you don't know what she told the providers, right?
I don't know.
And you don't know what kind of help she asked for other than medication, do you?
No.
And do you know whether there was any other options offered to her other than McLean, like a partial hospitalization program or intensive outpatient? Were you aware of those options?
Yeah.
And do you know if she went?
She went to Women and Infants.
So that's the one day where Pat dropped her off and went skiing and then came back, right?
I believe so.
You know that she went there, right?
Correct.
You know she was turned away because she was over-medicated, right?
Yes.
You also know that they gave her numbers to call suicide hotlines, right?
Yes.
She called twice, not once, but twice, and again was turned away. Isn't that right?
Yes.
Did you have a chance to review Dr. Tuft's medical records?
Yes, I did.
Can you describe them for us, please?
They are somewhat sparse, and there are many check boxes in the records, but not a great deal of sentences that describe what was done during sessions.
Were you aware that the sessions that Dr. Tufts conducted with Lindsay from September, the end of September, up through January 23rd were all televised on a computer?
Yes, they were all video.
Do you recall the medications that Dr. Tufts prescribed Lindsay?
I believe the first medication she started was Zoloft, 25 milligrams.
And what is that? Tell us what Zoloft is. What
Zoloft
effect does it have on a person?
I'm sorry?
What effect does that have on a person?
Well, Zoloft is a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor, which is a type of antidepressant that started being used around 1988, I believe. Prozac was the first one, Zoloft was the second. When it works to be helpful, it combats both anxiety and depressive symptoms that people might have. It also has, in some people, an effect of causing a feeling of jitteriness and increasing anxiety. So it's something that does have some potential side effects as well as beneficial effects. Well, psychosis in general just means a lack of understanding of what's real as opposed to what is not. So a person with psychosis can have delusions, which are fixed false beliefs. They could believe that, for example, they have been told by God to do something. They can also have hallucinations at times.
What kind of hallucinations?
Most people have auditory hallucinations, not visual hallucinations.
Hearing, is that correct? Auditory is hearing, right?
Yes.
Okay, as opposed to what?
As opposed to visual hallucinations.
Visual. And in the course of reviewing the medical records, did you see that, in fact, that Lindsay had auditory, no visual hallucinations, but auditory voices?
At times, she reported that she had heard a voice, yes.
Okay. Do you recall that as the time went by that she, in December, do you remember seeing in the medical records that she was relating that she was heavy, that she couldn't get out of bed, that she couldn't bathe, that she couldn't react, she couldn't love, she couldn't feel? Do you remember any of that from looking at the medical records?
Yes, those are all phrases that I recall from the medical records. Well, some hormones go up, like prolactin, and some hormones go down very quickly.
What effect does that have in your experience and your education and your research on women that have a baby? What effect does that have on them?
Well, many women experience postpartum blues.
What is postpartum blues?
It's a feeling of...
Thing.
I'm sorry?
Sounds like a 50s thing. What's postpartum blues?
It's a feeling of low energy and being sad, not as serious or usually as long as postpartum depression.
What is postpartum depression? Is that the next level?
It's a more serious condition where the woman may feel that she can't connect to the baby, that she feels isolated, she has no energy, she may also have insomnia.
So, for example, if a woman is unable to sleep, feels as though she's losing a contact or connection with her infant, is stressing about not having that contact with her infant, feels that she's unable to emote or feel love or any emotions and can't relate to people and also is out of reality, are those, or disassociative state, are those, in your opinion, symptoms of postpartum depression and or leading to postpartum psychosis?
Yes, they are.
And Lindsay had those symptoms, didn't she?
She reported all those symptoms, yes.
Doctor, when a doctor like Tufts is meeting with a person and checking the boxes, can that doctor give a blood test to the patient?
Certainly.
Is that important in your opinion, that a doctor give a patient, especially a woman who's coming to them for help with these symptoms, give them a blood test?
Yes.
And again, we all know what blood tests are, but just tell me, I mean, is that a simple test? Is it a complicated test?
It's fairly simple to have blood drawn, and there are many tests that are relevant, particularly after a woman has given birth.
Why?
Well, some women become anemic. Depends on how much blood loss might have occurred during birth, but there's usually some blood loss. So checking hemoglobin levels is important. The thyroid can be affected by delivery of the baby, and some women in the postpartum period develop inflammation of the thyroid. The thyroid is a very important gland that regulates many parts of the body.
Is that why many times when a competent psychiatrist is treating a patient that is postpartum after having a baby, that they might run, and I may be wrong saying it, but a thyroid test?
They would do most commonly two different kinds of thyroid tests. They would test for thyroid stimulating hormone, which goes up when the thyroid hormones that also can be tested for actually go down. So thyroid stimulating hormone is telling the body, make more thyroid hormone because it's not enough in the circulation.
Did Tufts ever use a blood test at all in her treatment?
No, she did not. The records stated that they thought that she was having complications from medications more than she was suffering from postpartum issues, and therefore was not a good candidate for their program.
And this was after getting there at 8 in the morning and leaving there around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, right?
That's my understanding, yes.
And the records indicate if you read them, that during that period of time, there were little group discussions and coloring sessions and things like that. Is that correct?
Yes.
You know that there are suicide hotlines that people are told to call, right?
Yes.
Especially if a woman is in postpartum and is experiencing these difficulties and is describing the symptomology and on all these medications, that if you feel like you're going to kill yourself, you're supposed to call a telephone number, right?
Well, it wouldn't be the advice I would give, but that was some advice that was given, yes.
And did she call, to your knowledge, from reviewing the records, the telephone?
She called the Aspire hotline, I believe, on 2 occasions.
And was she given any help by the Aspire hotline?
I believe the records say that she was told by Aspire that since she did not have a suicide plan, she did not require what's called a higher level of care.
She wasn't on all the medications at the same time, correct?
No, not at the same time.
And it's fair to say she was only on maybe 3 medications at one time.
3, there might have been 4 at one point, but yes.
And she had expressed particular medications that she wished to return to, like Ativan at some point, correct?
She was quite ambivalent about Ativan and talked a great deal in the records about being worried that she was addicted to it.
But Ativan tended to work for her, correct?
It made her feel less anxious. Yes.
And she actually described that at certain points to the providers that when she felt intrusive thoughts or she had a bad experience, that she took the Ativan and the thoughts were gone. Didn't she not?
I'm not sure that she said the intrusive thoughts were gone, but she would feel less anxious when she took it.
And as far as your conversations about hallucinations and auditory hallucinations, you indicated that at some point, or at points, I think was your testimony, that the defendant did hear a voice. But you're aware that she never reported to Jennifer Tufts that she heard a voice?
She did not.
She never reported to Rebecca Gelada that she heard a voice, did she?
She did not.
Would you agree that there are reasons that a woman would not tell the doctor or minimize their symptoms out of fear?
Yes.
What kind of fear? Fear of what?
Well, in the records, it's stated that Ms. Clancy reported she was worried that her children would be taken away from her, perhaps by the Department of Children and Families, if she reported very severe symptoms. The other thing is, as a health care professional, boards of registration sometimes take a dim view of people who have been in treatment for certain psychiatric illnesses. And so she might have been concerned about her nursing license, but that's speculation.
So there are other reasons why a person may be concerned about telling healthcare providers, mandated reporters, that they're hearing voices, correct?
Yes.
Would you agree with me that you don't have to see the proverbial unicorn in the corner to your health provider to be suffering from psychosis?
Yes, that's true.
And can you tell us, Counsel was asking about the symptomology, psychosis, is that something that just grinds on for day after week after month, or is that something that comes on out of nowhere very quickly?
No, overall.
It can be quite episodic.
What does that mean?
It means that an episode can start and stop, and then an interval of time goes by. It could be days, weeks, or months, and then another episode occurs.
Counsel asked you about bipolar disorder, the suspicions of bipolar disorder from Dr. Gelada, and then talked about the prescriptions that were prescribed. Is it, in your opinion, appropriate to prescribe a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor to a person that is bipolar?
No, overall.
It would be considered something to be done cautiously and usually with a mood stabilizer begun at the same time to prevent the possibility of making manic symptoms worse.
The second floor is open. That's where she would have put her palms down on the windowsill and put her head out and precipitated down to fall on the hard frozen ground. During her fall head first, she had cuts on her wrists which were bleeding, and her coming head down on the side of that building would then transfer some of that blood onto the side of the building, which was found in the scene photographs. She then hits really head first, and as her body descends that 13 or 14 feet. And if you look at the, so she really did a free fall dive head first. Then if you look on the right upper two diagrams that just show a skull, this illustrates the forces then that were applied to Lindsay's head from hitting the ground and then her head bending a little bit. And what she got from that is what we call a characteristic burst fracture or a Jefferson fracture. And this is a fracture that we see with people who hit their head on, like if they've taken a dive into a swimming pool and they hit their head on the bottom. It's a classic finding in people who have energy applied to the falling head. And what it does is that it takes the first cervical vertebrae, which kind of looks like a donut, as you see up there in the middle, and it squashes it. The base of the skull then squashes that. And then like a donut, it kind of spreads it out. And she had 6 or 7 fractures of that cervical vertebrae. Number 1, the ring of that. And the fractures I have pointed to there with arrows. So that is called the characteristic Jefferson fracture from hitting your head, the top of your head, in a dive first position. So you could also describe it as a bursting type fracture. But you don't get any spinal cord injury from that because the area, the hole in the middle is pretty big. So it just crushes down on the sides and fractures the ring around the spinal cord. So that tells me immediately that she landed head first and went down the window, went down head first. Then the energy is transmitted then from her head down her vertebral body, down the bony spine. And that then fractured and compressed C1. The lower right-hand panel there puts that cervical vertebral body in the context of the rest of her skeleton. The left upper hand, we see her jaw, and then the C1 is pointed out there, and there are little springs there to indicate they were squished and compressed together and fractured.
And you're saying that she fell with such force that she burst her C1 vertebrae and then broke other vertebrae in her back and broke ribs, correct?
Yes, just the force of a free-falling body, yes.
Okay, but she had no injuries to her head, correct?
I'm sure she had bruising to her scalp under her hair.
You're sure?
She did not have a skull fracture.
Right, she didn't have a skull fracture, correct?
Yes.
She didn't have any cuts or things that needed sutures, correct?
She needed sutures in the cutting wounds on her wrist.
Well, we're talking about her head right now. She didn't need any sutures on her head, correct?
Correct.
She didn't have any large dents in her head, correct?
Large dents? What do you mean?
From hitting the frozen ground head first, there were no dents or bumps or sutures required on her head, correct?
Her scalp was intact. The forces were transmitted to C1.
So through her head.
A very common finding when you go head first and hit your head.
So hitting the frozen ground, the icy frozen ground, not a bump or scratch or scrape on her top of her head. And then within her head, there was no brain bleed. There was no hemorrhaging. There was no injury into her brain itself. Nothing showed up on the CT scans, correct?
Correct. Her brain was fine. Her skull was fine. I'm sure she probably had some scalp bruising under her hair.
You're sure because that goes along with what you're guessing at how the fall happened, correct? You can't be sure because you didn't see the head, correct? You say you're sure, but you didn't see her head.
I saw the medical records and I examined all of those. I'm sure she had some bruise on the top of her head to the backside, as I showed in my diagram number 4. I'm sure there was some bruising on her scalp under her hair, but that was not a major concern at the time she was taken into the hospital.
You keep saying you're sure there were bruises, that you're sure that there was this or that that's not shown in any photographs or medical evidence. So you're not sure, are you? You're assuming.
No, I'm sure. Yes, in order to become dead, brain dead, the physiology is that you become unconscious within 5 to 10 seconds, and then you're unconscious, but that's not dead. Then that continued constriction of the blood flow has to be still continuously applied for the brain to die.
Correct.
So that is what happens, and that's what happened to the Clancy children. The ligatures were wrapped around. They went unconscious in 5 to 10, maybe 20 seconds, probably less than 20 seconds because it was a ligature, not a manual strangulation. So it was immediately compressed unconsciousness within 10 seconds.
The band, doctor, wrapped around the child's neck several times and then left there. I guess you can't see it from where you are, but it just fell apart. It didn't stay in a circle.
Yeah, I sort of saw what you did, so.
What was that?
I said, I saw that.
You saw it. So it was left there and it fell apart, correct?
Yeah, what you just did, sure.
And to that extent, as you discuss whether or not somebody is faking or somebody is exaggerating, do you have an opinion based upon your review of the discovery in the case to a reasonable degree of medical certainty as to whether or not Lindsay Clancy, in the course of that evaluation, was malingering or lying or exaggerating?
Yes, I do.
Tell the jury.
My opinion in the testing of Ms. Clancy regarding the MMPI was that
Objection.
Just the doctor, your opinion, doctor.
she was not faking. There was no evidence of any malingering. She presented as an honest citizen. She didn't know where she was. Wasn't quite sure what time it was. She knew who she was. And she told me that she remembers what happened, but it was very fuzzy and foggy. At the time, she had been on medication for the significant pain post-surgery while in that hospital room.
And during the course of that interview with her, did she express any concern to you about her husband, Patrick?
Yes, she did.
Tell the jurors what she indicated to you.
She said, since 11 days prior to my meeting with her, which would have been January 24th, 2023, she had no contact with Patrick. She wanted to know how he was doing. She wanted to know if she could call him and find out where things are with her and with him and how he was faring, and to just speak with him.
She expressed concern about her family.
Yes, she did.
Did she express concern about what had happened?
Yes.
Did she ask you, or did you offer to her the ability to speak to her husband, Patrick?
She asked me if she could use my cell phone to call her husband.
Did she do that?
Yes, she did.
Did you hear the conversation?
Yes, I told her we'd call. It would have to be on speakerphone.
And tell us about that conversation.
So that first phone call, I believe on the 24th, he did not pick up. She left a message. I did not leave a message. We then called back 2 days later on the 6th.
And after the 2 days had transpired and the call was made on the 6th, did she have a chance to talk to Patrick?
Yes.
Were you there?
Yes.
Was she still chained to the bed?
Yes.
Were the cops still outside the room?
Yes, not in blues. They were in civilian clothing, jeans, flannel shirts.
And tell us what she said to Patrick in your presence on the speakerphone at that point.
She had told Patrick that she loved him very much. She was unable to express a lot of emotion, but she expressed love for him. And she had said that she heard a male voice ordering her, telling her that she didn't have any choice, but she had to kill her children and then kill herself.
Now,
she felt that her brain was damaged. She felt that she should kill herself. And she's never going to get any better.
did she also express fear that people could hear her thoughts and that anything adverse would happen in her life regarding being a mother and having children?
Yes, that's called thought broadcasting.
And what was her concern about the children?
Her concern was that when people could hear her thoughts, her children would be removed from her care.
Now, and keep your voice up, please.
Yes.
Did she indicate, and I quote, that she had bad and intrusive thoughts, and she didn't even feel that they were like mine, telling me I should kill myself, my brain is damaged, you're never going to get better?
Yes.
And did that type of intrusive thought or persecutory thought continue for a period of time?
Yes. So it got worse.
Did it get so bad that she ended up doing something?
Yes, that's correct.
What did she do?
She called the suicide hotline.
And do you know when that was, sir?
That was December 4th, 2022.
Did she receive any help from the suicide hotline?
She did not.
Why is that?
They told her she did not meet the standard of care because she did not have a plan.
Did she call the suicide hotline again, if you're aware?
Yes, she did.
Do you know when that was? Was that in December?
Yes, I believe that was perhaps the following week around the 15th, but I'm not positive about that.
Did she receive help on the second call that she called the suicide hotline?
No, she did not.
The person is in a psychotic state. Are they able to continue to Google and use a computer to look things up?
Yes.
They're able to use a phone?
Yes. People who are in that state can do things that they've done before. New tasks may be difficult, like changing a tire, but if you looked up things on the internet, you can look them up again. If you drove a car, you can drive a car.
Now, the morning of January 24th, I believe she went somewhere. Is that right?
Yes.
Where'd she go?
She had taken her daughter to a pediatrician, a standing pediatrician appointment.
And is it your understanding, to a reasonable degree of medical certainty, that a person who's in a psychotic state is able to drive a car for a short distance, go to an appointment, and interact and talk to people.
Yes, they can do everyday tasks of living.
So the fact that she's not talking about the unicorns in the corner, and she's not slurring her speech, and she's not unable to walk, to your opinion, to a reasonable degree of medical certainty, does that mean that she's not in a psychotic state?
It does not.
Would you tell us, after she took Cora to the doctors, and the jurors have had a chance to look at the exhibits, there's photographs between her and her husband, Pat, back and forth. In the afternoon, what did she do?
She built a snowman in the backyard with two of her kids.
Later in that day, Google directions to a restaurant, 3B restaurant, I believe.
Yes.
Is that something that a person can do when they're in that type of a state?
Easily.
Did the
Yes.
voices or the intrusive thoughts to your interview and your understanding abate or stop at that point on January 24th?
No.
Did they continue?
Yes.
Did she indicate that she was having a harder time taking care of her children?
Yes.
Did she indicate that she was having issues regarding personal hygiene, not bathing, things of that nature?
Yes.
Did she indicate that she had severe confusion in actually hearing or seeing things that aren't there? In her case, it would not be seeing, that would be visual hallucinations. But did she complain of hearing things that weren't there, hallucinations?
Yes.
Did she complain of thoughts and beliefs that were not within reality and that she was in a disassociated state out of reality?
Yes.
Did she indicate that, did you observe that there were circumstances where she exhibited increased energy, activity, productivity, otherwise known as hypomania?
Yes.
Did she complain that she had racing thoughts, a, quote, busy brain, end quote, increased creativity?
Yes.
And when she said in your review of the medical records that she was having a busy brain, did she express the fact that she would get confused and that she thought her brain was damaged?
Yes, that's correct.
Was she restless and agitated, unable to keep still?
Yes.
Unable to sleep?
Yes, extremely unable to sleep.
So can you tell this jury, sir, in your opinion, to a reasonable degree of medical certainty based upon all of what you have reviewed, all of what we have talked about, all of what you have considered, as to whether or not at the time of this incident resulting in the killing of these three little kids that she was suffering from a mental disease or defect, such as that she lost substantial capacity to appreciate the wrongfulness of her act, or, in the disjunctive, was unable to conform her conduct to the requirements of the law?
Yes.
Tell the jury what your opinion is, please.
My opinion is that she did have indeed a mental disease or defect. That's a legal construct, not a DSM-5 one, but she had bipolar disorder with postpartum psychoses. In addition, she was unable to conform her behaviors to the rule of law, and she had no appreciation for the wrongfulness of her act.
You said you went back on February 6th and met with her again, correct?
Yes.
And you guys made another attempt at calling Patrick.
Yes.
Again, did you remember the number?
No.
Did you have it stored in your phone?
No.
Did she provide you his phone number to call?
Well, it was in my phone. I could just look it up on my phone. I didn't write it down. I didn't enter his name. Either she gave it to me again, or I just looked it up from 2 days prior.
But you don't recall, as you sit here today, which it was, do you?
No.
And you didn't write a report about that interaction, did you?
I did not.
So in the second phone call, you were able to actually hear that she was talking with Patrick on the other end, right?
Yes.
And at that time, when you were now second time meeting with her and having this phone call, were you aware that she had already changed her healthcare proxy from Patrick to her parents?
I did not know that.
Did you talk to Patrick in between the 4th and the 6th to find out if he had tried to come in to visit her?
I didn't speak to him at all, so I knew nothing about what his plans or intentions were.
Your testimony yesterday was that she had called him to tell him that she loved him and to see where they were at, right?
Yes.
That was your testimony? Meaning what, their relationship?
That I made no interpretation of what that meant. She left the message, and we left it at that.
But in that subsequent conversation that you were a witness to where they were speaking on the phone and she told them about these voices or explained about the voices, did she ask about the kids?
She did not, as I recall.
Now, in all of the times over the course of the last few years that you've met with Miss Clancy, how many times has she told you since the incident that she's heard a voice? Currently?
She has not heard voices since the event took place in 2023. She spoke to a chaplain named Sheila Kavanaugh, who I spoke with, and Chaplain Kavanaugh told me that Ms. Clancy told her that she heard a male voice instructing her to first kill her children and then to kill herself.
So the same message that she delivered to Patrick that day on the phone, you heard from a chaplain at Brigham and Women's Hospital after the incident occurred in January of 2023?
Yes.
And so from all of the records that you reviewed of her treatment and all of the interviews with her family, who did she tell that she heard voices telling her to kill herself?
I believe she told family members.
Which family members?
I believe she may have said that to her mother. She, I believe, told her husband that she felt like killing herself as well.
In the records with the providers, you're aware, you've reviewed them all and you've sat through all of their testimony. You're aware that when she described intrusive thoughts, she never referred to them as a voice telling her to kill herself, did they? Did she?
No, she was referring to...
It's just a yes or no?
No.
So as far as her reports of these intrusive thoughts that appear over and over in the notes, you would agree that it was simply, when asked about what they were, it was simply that she felt like she wanted to die, right?
Yes, and...
It's just a yes or no?
Yes.
Now, did you have a conversation with her in one of these 35 hours about that particular voice or thought or belief?
So when I meet with Ms. Clancy, it's not as if I have one conversation on one of the 35 hours. To have thoroughness and exactitude, one does what we call intra-rater reliability. In other words, over the period of time, to confirm what someone says to you to help endorse the veracity or accuracy of that, you'll ask that question in a multitude of different ways. So I don't just ask once, did you hear a voice on that day? I ask in different ways over time, and her answers pretty much remain the same.
So when you quote in your report, when questioned about the nature and content of these horrible thoughts, Ms. Clancy stated, quote, like a really bad and intrusive thought that I didn't feel like it was mine, telling me I should kill myself, your brain is damaged, you're never going to get better, end quote. Where does the quote come from?
Where does the quote come from?
Right.
She had said that to me.
To you, at some point?
Yes.
Okay. And this is well after the incident occurred, correct?
Yes.
And you reviewed all the records to know that she did not endorse that she was hearing a voice to any of her providers between September and January 23rd of 2023.
So when someone...
Yes or no, sir?
That's a difficult question to say yes or no from, because sometimes if someone says something that's inaccurate, it's not an affirmatory or a negative response. That's misleading.
My question to you, though, was where in the records from September to January 23rd or 2022 did she tell any of the providers she saw that she heard a voice telling her to kill herself?
It's not in the records.
Okay. And you're aware that she has spoken to several forensic psychiatrists and psychologists over the course of this case, right? Not just yourself.
Yes, she spoke to 3 retained experts in April 10th and April 12th of 2026. And then on June 12th of 2026, 1,172 days after I initially met with her, then 1,220 days after I met with her. That's the third examiner.
Well, you're aware that you're referring to Dr. Halbrin, Dr. Mack, and Dr. Satoff, correct?
Correct.
But you're aware that she also spoke with Dr. Resnick and Dr. Spinelli well before that.
On May 5th of 2023, approximately 90 days more or less later. Yes.
And you're also aware, sir, that she never told Dr. Resnick in a recorded interview, nor Dr. Halbrin, Dr. Mack, or Dr. Satoff that she heard.
Sustained.
Your testimony is that she told you that she heard this voice. Fair to say she identified to you that it was her own voice that she heard, correct?
That's not correct. We have something called the subjective baseline, the cognitive appraisal theme. Help is in the eye of the beholder. If she felt she didn't get help, that's how she felt.
Well, sir, that wasn't the question. And your testimony was she went to the ER and did not get help. That was your testimony, not hers.
Well, my testimony is based on my evaluation of her. This is what Ms. Clancy shared with me. Who am I to doubt what she believes or doesn't believe about the offer for treatment or help? It's her opinion.
She chose to decline the bed at McLean on December 15th, did she not?
Yes.
And she then indicated to the Mass General Hospital that she was going to opt for an outpatient program at the Women and Infants, correct?
Yes.
That's what's in the records.
Yes.
Are you familiar with the concept of confirmation bias?
Of course.
And fair to say it's pretty prevalent in most areas of science and forensic psychology and psychiatry, correct?
It courses all domains of work and life.
And as far as confirmation bias for psychiatry or providers, fair to say that clinicians are warned that they may lean towards or support their own theories and overlook contradictory evidence. And that you have to be aware of that, correct?
Yes.
And again, in forensic psychology, the goal is to render an objective opinion, right?
Yes, the facts come to you. You don't go to the facts.
Okay. And there's a danger for clinicians and forensic psychologists of quickly forming an initial diagnosis before having all the information, correct?
Yes.
And that confirmation bias accounts for the fact that a lot of times people, clinicians and providers will cling to diagnoses and interpret subsequent information in light of that kind of already perceived idea. Is that fair to say?
They cling, I just want to make sure I understand what you're saying. They cling to a diagnosis?
Well, once a diagnosis is reached, they cling to that diagnosis when interpreting subsequent information.
That happens, yes.
And, but you would agree that in practice of forensic psychology that it's important not to do that, right?
Particularly with the guidelines of criminal responsibility where you don't need a diagnosis. You just need a mental disease or defect.
But diagnoses are helpful in understanding whether the person was suffering from this legal construct of a mental disease or defect, correct?
That's fair to say.
And it's fairly accepted in the field that if somebody has a disorder or a diagnosed mental illness, that they then in turn suffer from a mental disease or defect. Or could.
Or could, because you can have a phobia. Doesn't mean you have a mental disease or defect. If you're afraid to jump out of airplanes, it doesn't make you ineffective and have a defect or a disease. So yes, it could.
Ask you to keep your voice up.
Yes, Ron. So it could, but it doesn't always have to.
Thank you.
Of course.
And you're aware of the danger of this idea of confirmation bias of having multiple relationships and conflicts in this type of work, correct?
Yes.
And that's why it's important not to be treating somebody as a patient when you're also evaluating them for this type of legal issue, right?
Of course, you cannot be the therapist and the examiner. The therapist is an advocate. The examiner looks for the truth.
Confirmation bias means that the individual might want to help out the person that they're testifying for. Is that right?
It can be, yes.
So in other words, if you have a shooting case and you're a ballistics guy, and without the ballistics showing that the defendant's gun shot the victim, the government has no case. They may send an email to that witness and say, hey, I really need your help here. And that might influence them, right?
Yes.
Now you got involved with this case, as you indicated, out of my request, obviously.
Yes.
Compassion.
Correct.
The fact you had a young lady that was literally in extreme condition, emotionally, physically, you went to speak with her, correct?
I did, yes.
Do you care for her?
I do.
And is that a violation of the canon of ethics for professionals like you if you care for your patient?
Not at all. Within the ethical standards, it's also noted to do an appropriate and meaningful forensic evaluation. It's strongly suggested you develop empathy and rapport. And when you have those two psychological constructs, you get more information from the respondent. You do not cherry pick the information. You include warts and all in your report. That avoids confirmatory bias, and you avoid confirmatory bias by also not looking at conclusions that other examiners come up with when they render their opinions, and you do your evaluations independent of anyone else. You do it by yourself.
The district attorney took the 7,000 pages in one of the records and apparently went through them to the anniversary of the death of her 3 children, correct?
Yes.
Went through them to highlight each birthday of her 3 children. Is that correct?
Yes.
In your opinion, you've been in a lot of mental institutions and facilities in the Commonwealth and out of the state, correct?
Yes.
Is it your understanding to a reasonable degree of medical certainty that the fact that a woman who is paralyzed is propelling herself down the hall from one room to another is indicative of anything?
Not at all.
How about the fact that her mother and father, who have been with her for 3 years and practically missed not one day of sitting with her and bringing her dinner or lunch, is that something that would be indicative of undercutting the fact that the woman was suffering from mental disease or defect?
That's indicative of love. And
how about the fact that she's talking to other inmates or people that are patients. And in your review of the records, would you tell us your opinion as to her level and degree of popularity, bluntly, in that particular ward?
She is extremely well regarded and well liked on that unit by everyone.
Overruled.
How about in reviewing the records, I didn't hear that she's laughing and partying and having a good time while she's in the Tewksbury Hospital. Did you see anything like that?
No, Lindsay Clancy has bad days and worse days.
And when you speak with her and meet with her, doctor, has she ever mentioned her children? Because apparently, according to the questioning that you underwent, she never talks about her kids.
She does speak about her children.
What does she say?
She really loves them and misses them and thinks of them every single day, almost every moment of the day.
I started as a mental health specialist there, which I think you can sort of try to summarize as those are the counselors are sort of directly on the unit with the patients. Our main role is to keep patients safe, really. So you're doing a lot of safety checks. You are putting eyes on patients to make sure they're not trying to harm or kill themselves. And we do crisis intervention. So when those things are happening, because they do, we are the ones to intervene. And unfortunately, there are a lot of restraints that happen on those units, and that's one of our main jobs.
You saw the questioning of the district attorney of Patrick Clancy.
Yep.
You heard Patrick Clancy make reference to the fact that his wife admitted herself into the STU on a holiday weekend, New Year's.
Yes.
Was there all that weekend.
Right.
Into a holiday.
Right.
And the district attorney then questioning Patrick inquired as to whether he was aware that it was the best hospital in the country, that there were many doctors and nurses and staff available and programs available, and Lindsay wasn't interested in any of that, right?
Yes, that's what I took from it.
Now, in your 8 years, however many years of experience that you had, is that what your understanding was in that unit?
No, that's not what I was understanding, no.
So tell the judge what your understanding was from your experience, hands-on, day after day, working in the STU for all of those years.
Right.
But you also were a supervisor of the STU at one time.
I actually wasn't. I became a social worker there, so I guess you could, one way to look at it is that, the social worker and the psychiatrist, you are the treatment team, so you're making all the decisions for the patients, and so the nurses and the mental health specialists, I don't like to create a hierarchy, but they are operating underneath you, so in a way I'm supervising, but I was never a direct supervisor.
Now, you came out with a TikTok or
I did.
A reel or whatever you call it.
Yeah, TikTok.
And would you agree with me that you were pretty angry when you did that?
Yeah, definitely emotional.
So tell the judge, why were you emotional when you did that TikTok?
Well, it's a lengthy TikTok. It's about 10 minutes. And I was emotional because I felt like what was discussed in court was not aligned with what my experience was. I noted several things. I'll try to summarize some of them. There was mention that there's individual therapy on the unit. There is not. There was mention of seeing a doctor every day. I felt like there was some misleading of that. You do see a doctor every day, but on the weekends and on a holiday, it's one doctor who's seeing all of the patients. The meetings can be as short as 1 minute. Many patients decline those meetings. And the doctor who's there on the weekend and holidays is seeing 23 patients. So I felt it was misleading to indicate that there's sort of a in-depth doctor session when it's very brief.
I'm not looking to bring her in to disparage McLean Hospital. They've done a good job of that themselves. I'm bringing her in to just have evidence as to what Patrick's testimony was relating to what his wife went through when she was in McLean to corroborate the fact, as opposed to what was raised on direct exam with the government when they were questioning him about all of these wonderful programs that she apparently was not interested in participating in, which is very, very, I would argue, improper inference for the jury to consider.
All right. Kamal?
Your Honor, would object to the witness, and even now after the voir dire, I think it's clear that the best evidence of what the defendant was provided by way of care, treatment, however you want to call it, is the record in and of itself. It's the record from McLean that documents each and every contact she had with each and every person that was on staff during the time period she was there. Now, just to be clear, there's been some indication that she went there on the 31st of December, but the records are clear to say she was transported, and she didn't arrive at McLean until the early morning hours of January 1st. So that's when the records start, and they document her each and every day and each and every step of the way, consistent with how Dr. Goodhart described the process of how you're in intake and then how you go through the day and what the general schedule is in the contact with the treatment team. This witness is offering no more information than what's contained within the record, and no more information that's what's contained in the records that were just received for the trial subpoena. And I would suggest to you that the fact that she, in her last role as a social worker from 2019 to 2021, where she was a day staff person that worked Monday through Friday, that wasn't there on the weekends, that she does have a limited amount of information, and it's attenuated, more attenuated than we initially believed, from the dates in which the defendant was at this particular hospital. So I would suggest, or I would object and argue that the best evidence is the records in and of themselves, the records that now have been subpoenaed that can be admitted to identify the particular staff. I'd also like to point out that counsel is referring to offering this to rebut certain inferences or certain statements that the Commonwealth made in the direct examination of Mr. Clancy, but no one has said that McLean is a #1 hospital. That wasn't the testimony. That wasn't the question put before him.
It's very moving for them. They don't forget it.
Right. Mr. Reddington, what's your message to all these folks who are here today?
Thank you. That's all I can say. It's amazing.
We love you, Kevin.
Kevin, are you surprised at just how much attention this case has gotten? I mean, people are coming from Maine.
It's the message. It really is. It's the message that just has reverberated, throughout the whole country.
What is that message?
Reddington's fighting for women's rights.
No, I don't.
Healthcare.
I think that it's the mental health system. I hate to use the word health care because, unfortunately, in this case, we can see it hasn't been health care, and I think that it shines a light on this issue. I mean, when a woman is going through what so many people do, and they go to a doctor, and the doctor says, here, take this pill, take that pill, take this pill, and then they basically treat them for 15, 20 minutes and send them on their way. It's just not right.
And to those who can't wrap their heads around sympathizing with a mother who killed her 3 children, what do you say to them?
I think it's almost like when you're picking a jury, and sometimes somebody will say, well, I don't agree with, this allegation of murder. I mean, none of us do. But that's what we have juries for. They pass between the government and a defendant to see if they can prove their case.
Is she aware of this support, and what does she think of this support?
I'm going to go in and see her right now. I'm sure that she is, and if she isn't, she will be.
What do you think about?
She's so beat up and just so sad. But this will really help her out, I think. It's awesome.
Tell her we love her. What do you think about you being the advocate for all women right now?
I'm not an advocate.
You are. But you are.
But you are. Man, get to work.
But you are.
Busy day.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Well, the unit itself was filled with law enforcement officers, both outside the doors of the unit. There was Brigham security, but the unit itself was flooded. There were people from Plymouth County, Boston City Police, Brigham Security, so I had to make my way through concentric circles of law enforcement to even get to the room. I was permitted to see Lindsay, although she could not speak at that time.
And what was her condition that you observed?
She was dressed in medical armor. She had tubes. She was intubated. She had bandages. She had a neck brace. She was just covered and layered in equipment that enabled her to breathe. She was covered, tubes everywhere, the neck brace. Her emotional state was very neutral, a flat affect. But I remember vividly the first thing she said to me. Now, she had heard me for a couple of days. We had been praying together. And so when I went in on Tuesday the 31st, she said to me as I held her hand to comfort her, "I am so glad my children are safe."
Was there any other conversation that you had with her?
I replied theologically to Lindsay, and I said, "Lindsay, your children are safe. They're safe in heaven with God." And I held her hand throughout that conversation, and we prayed for them.
Did she make any other statements to you?
She did. She alluded to having heard a voice, and the voice, according to Lindsay, told her that if she did not follow the command, neither she nor her children would be safe.
And did she indicate whether it was a male voice, a female voice, loud, soft?
She alluded to the fact that it was a male voice and it was persistent.
Any further conversation that you recall about that, not about general things,
That came up several times. I visited Lindsay minimally 14 times while she was hospitalized at the Brigham, and the voice conversation came up several times during several of our visits. When Lindsay was admitted to Tewksbury State Hospital, I continued to see her on a weekly basis. We had built up a very comfortable, respectful rapport, and I felt it was in her best interest to continue that as she healed. She was still in deep grief. She was suffering.
Sustained.
So
That opinion will be stricken.
So did she express anything about her children and their loss over that period of 200 times that you saw her thereabouts in Tewksbury?
Objection.
No, overruled.
Yes.
Other jurors?
Lindsay talks frequently about her children. She loves them deeply. She carries immense grief.
Objection.
Overruled. Next question.
And has that continued to your observation?
It continues presently.
And she told you that she heard a voice telling her that if she did not follow the command, neither she nor her children would be safe, correct?
Correct.
You wrote very detailed notes that are contained in the Brigham and Women's Hospital records regarding your interactions with Lindsay Clancy, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
And in all of these notes that detail every time you interacted with her, you never once wrote that she told you she heard a voice or what that voice said, correct?
Correct.
And you also said that this voice, talking about the voice, came up in several of your meetings, correct?
Correct.
And you never once wrote about any of it in any of your very detailed notes, correct?
Well, chaplain notes are not verbatim transcripts of patient conversations. I'm not there to evaluate the patient. I'm there to bear witness to their suffering.
Okay, but the question was, you did not document those statements in your notes, correct?
Correct.
But you did document some other statements in those notes, correct?
Perhaps.
For example, on February 6th, 2023, in a note that you wrote regarding your interaction with the defendant, you said that, or you wrote, Lindsay welcomed the visit and shared her fears of, quote, not being able to walk again, end quote. she continued to express her fears of how her inability to walk may make her vulnerable to others in the future. Do you recall writing that?
Yes.
Do you recall writing on February 9th, 2023, that the defendant was sitting in a chair adjacent to her bed and appeared to be visibly engaged, energized, and hopeful than in previous visits? Do you recall that?
Yes.
You also wrote in that note, Lindsay spoke hopefully of being discharged when the time arrives to Spalding, correct?
Correct.
And then in February 13th, 2023, you wrote in your note that Lindsay also expressed hopefulness in relation to her physical progress. She feels she has gained considerable physical strength and agility despite an inability to move her legs. She admitted that she feels, quote, deserving of this, end quote, in light of recent events. Do you remember writing that?
Yes.
Do you remember on February 16th, 2023, that you wrote in a note that the defendant expressed hopefulness with the news of her anticipated discharge to Spalding and seemed uplifted that she would be cared for in a facility with an excellent reputation?
Yes.
Do you recall writing on February 16th, 2023, that Paula, the defendant's mother, and Lindsay, the defendant, were playing a card game as they communed quietly, and that Lindsay expressed hopefulness with the news of her anticipated discharge to Spalding and seemed uplifted?
Yes.
And again, you've got all these details about her feelings and her thoughts and what she's doing, but nothing about the voices that you spoke of so many times, correct?
Correct.
There's a difference, however, between privileged communications with a chaplain and observations of a person's feelings and thoughts, correct?
Correct.
Tell the jury what effect privileged communication has when someone talks to you personally as a chaplain.
Because I'm not a medically trained clinician, I approach patients in a vortex of trust. Some of our chaplains at the Brigham are ordained clergy. And so there's this understanding that when a patient interacts with a chaplain, the conversations are confidential.
Do you put them in medical records?
No.
The words, like Lindsay indicated that she felt uplifted, I think the counsel read that twice. Were those your notes, or is that what she said to you? Did she say, I feel uplifted, or is that your
That was my
observation?
perception of Lindsay. It was not her words.
In terms of the criminal responsibility instruction, we're asking that the instruction regarding intoxication not be given because from our perspective, there's been no evidence of intoxication by drugs and or alcohol during the killings. There's testimony, and I think there'll be more testimony about the defendant taking pills after killing the children. And before killing the children, she was on low-dose prescription, 10 milligrams of amitriptyline that was recently increased to 20 milligrams, but there's no real evidence of whether or not she actually increased that dose. And then it was a low dose of trazodone and a low dose of, I believe, Valium. So those were prescribed medications that she had reported no side effects from. And I believe in the text with her mother, she said that she was still waiting to actually feel effects from those. So there's no evidence of intoxication from those drugs. And then the only intoxication potentially could be when she took pills after killing the children. And even those amounts from the toxicology are low-level amounts. So we're asking that the instruction on intoxication not be given.
If the government has been listening to the same evidence in this case, this is clearly an involuntary intoxication defense, at least as far as the judge's charge to the jury based upon the evidence that's been presented, whether or not it's what we would argue is the over prescription of the medications, whether or not it's the side effects of the medications, whether or not it's the titration or the termination or the immediate cessation of the medications against what normal medical advice would be, all of those factors contribute to the state of mind of Ms. Clancy that was expressed to a lot of people, family members, people that knew her. She had indicated, I think Your Honor knows the evidence, repeatedly indicated that she was affected by the benzos. She was affected, felt that she was being addicted to the benzos, trying to get off the benzos. She indicated that the sertraline was obviously killing her as far as going from 25 to 50 milligrams. And then subsequent to that, when there's additional SSRIs prescribed, to suggest that there's no basis to give the jury the instruction, they may determine based on the evidence that is as a result of the involuntary intoxication from narcotics, not alcohol, obviously, from the prescribed narcotics, not illegal drugs. So from the prescription drugs, that's on all fours with a valid defense that they should be instructed as it relates to involuntary intoxication. I think it's the model jury instructions on criminal responsibility. Obviously, if there's any nuances that I would pick up, I would bring that to the court's attention. But I have tried murder case recently with the model jury instructions, and my memory is that I was pretty satisfied. It was Judge O'Shea, I think, actually in this courtroom a year ago, and I was satisfied with the instructions on lack of criminal responsibility. I would, at some point, ask the court to charge on involuntary manslaughter. I'd ask the court to charge on wanton conduct with a component of the impact of the intoxication. So you can't try this case in a vacuum. You can't present the case to the jury. I know the government would like to present the case only on cruelty and atrocity. They probably don't like the statute that allows a jury to determine the degree of murder, which would be first and second. But I think that the evidence is such that a jury should have the option of considering whether or not we're talking about involuntary manslaughter based upon the evidence that's permitted. So I would defer to the court on the instructions on cruelty and atrocity, premeditated malice aforethought, second degree malice. I would ask the court to consider instructing on involuntary intoxication, to consider on the involuntary manslaughter as a lesser offense. How did she appear to you physically, and how was she able to answer your questions? Just tell us what her appearance was, her mood.
Yes, well, first of all, at the time, of course, she had suffered major injury and was paralyzed, so that was the setting. So during the examination, she did not have control of the lower part of her body. During the interview, she appeared somewhat matter of fact, but at the time she was still grieving. The nurses told me that she was crying daily about the loss of her 3 children, and she was also medicated at that time. She was fully cooperative and gave me a detailed account of her recollections of the critical events.
Did you make an observation of her affect? Did she appear to have what you refer to as a flat affect?
Yes, she did have, or I would call it a blunted affect. That is, her emotions were not as you would expect. Her feeling tone was muted. In summary, the results were that Lindsay Clancy had a tendency to minimize and did not have a tendency to exaggerate what she was saying and her own symptoms.
Did it also indicate that she was not, I think the terminology is faking or lying in her answers, but in fact was being truthful as best she could be?
Yes, although the test is a little more specific about symptoms rather than lying or not lying, but it did not suggest any evidence of faking symptoms.
Okay, and I'm sorry, that broke up. It did not suggest any evidence of what?
No evidence of faking psychiatric symptoms.
And then finally, one of the scales in that test is referred to as the K, I think from the books, the K scale or the lie scale. Is that correct?
Yes, that was not elevated.
Not elevated. Okay. Can you tell this jury your opinion as to whether or not at the time of the killings that she was suffering from a disease or defect that impaired her ability to substantially appreciate and or conform her conduct to the requirements of the law?
Well, sure. Let me begin with the issue of whether she had a mental disease or a defect. Ms. Clancy had a severe depression. There is a book called the DSM, or Diagnostic Manual, prepared by the American Psychiatric Association, which lists criteria for various diseases. So in the diagnostic manual, for example, one needs to have 5 out of 9 symptoms to make a diagnosis of major depression. And Ms. Clancy, as she approached the date of the crime, actually had 7 of the 9 symptoms and was severely depressed. So that in addition to that, she had some earlier evidence of what's called a mild mania, and that fits together in what's called bipolar 2. So in other words, it's a type of bipolar illness where there is more frank depression, severe depression, but the manic aspects are not as severe. So my final diagnosis of her was called bipolar 2 with a severe depression on January 24, 2023. And from reading the reports of all of the experts that will be testifying, no one failed to diagnose a major mental disease on the day of the crime.
Relate your opinion as it relates to the standard of a person being lacking criminal responsibility at the time of the commission of a crime in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
Well, there are 2 arms to the test for criminal responsibility. One has to do the defendant's ability to control their conduct, and the other has to do with their knowledge of the wrongfulness of their acts. I'd like to address each of those separately, if I may.
Sure.
With regard to my opinion is that Ms. Clancy was, due to her mental disease, unable to conform her conduct was to the requirements of the law on the day that she took the lives of her children. And let me give you the basis of that opinion. First of all, she was hearing a voice which was commanding her to engage in the killing behavior, and she did not feel any sense of control. She felt that she had to obey the instructions she was receiving. it was a matter where she was just following the command rather than being able to make any decision to do it or not. And, for example, I asked Ms. Clancy.
No, you can't say what you talked, Doctor. You can't. You cannot say what she told you. All right.
Okay. All right. I will not do that. Let me just make sure I'm covering other aspects of this. The second evidence that she was lacking control is the fact that she made a severe suicide attempt, also based on the command hallucination that she heard that day, so that she not only cut her throat and jumped out of a window, she very much wanted to die.
While she's in the Tewksbury Hospital, what are the circumstances of her confinement and what type of care is being provided to her as it relates to whether or not or why she hasn't killed herself yet?
Well, Nancy, indeed, there is evidence of her going suicidality to such an extent that she is never allowed to be out of the presence of a staff member. Even when I conducted an examination of her and requested privacy, a staff member had to be present. So her ability to take her life in view of her process and observation is and she recognizes that, so that the reality is, no matter she does not want to live at any point, she has no choice but first to live at this time.
A woman who kills her child can have more than one motive, correct?
Yes.
And actually, the most common motive for women who kill their children is fatal maltreatment or child abuse, correct?
That's correct.
And in fact, most women who kill their kids don't do it due to mental illness, correct?
That's correct.
And in fact, there's a quote from you in an article, Child Murdered by Mothers, Patterns and Prevention, where you say, quote, more filicides occur due to fatal maltreatment than because of maternal psychiatric illness, correct?
Correct.
You also have written about parents having significant emotional devastation after killing their children, correct?
Yes.
And in fact, you've written in, it's a chapter 6 of Family Murder, Child Murder by Parents, in the Aftermath section, you've written, quote, these life events are likely to prolong the parent's depression. The anniversary of the children's deaths and exposure to things that remind the parent of it are likely to be upsetting, correct?
Yes.
Things like birthdays and holidays and the anniversary of the killings would all be something that would be upsetting, correct?
They sometimes are, yes.
Now, you've written a lot about malingered psychosis, correct?
Yes.
And malingering psychosis, you can have a mental illness and your malingering could be exaggerating those symptoms or saying you have psychosis symptoms when you don't, correct?
That's correct.
And one of the things that you have written, and there's an article that you wrote called Faking It, you've written in here, quote, command auditory hallucinations are easy to fabricate. Persons experiencing genuine command hallucinations do not always obey the voices, especially if doing so would be dangerous, correct?
That's correct.
You've also given some points to other practitioners. If you, quote, if you suspect a person of malingered auditory hallucination, ask what he or she does to make the voices go away or diminish in intensity, correct?
Yes.
Because typically someone who hears a voice telling them to do something horrible like kill their child will try to resist that voice initially, correct?
That there's variability. Some do and some don't.
And in fact, the case you mentioned earlier, Andrea Yates, Miss Yates, in fact, committed herself to a hospital 5 times and tried to kill herself twice, all while trying to not kill her children, correct?
Yes.
She had heard voices for months and telling her to kill her children. And to resist those voices, she actually tried to kill herself, correct?
Until she could no longer resist the voices, yes.
Right. You say that she was very forthcoming in her symptoms to her medical providers, but she never told those medical providers that she had an impulse to harm her children, correct?
That's correct.
You also, in teaching people about malingering, about faking hearing voices or being psychotic, you give pointers of what people should look for, such as patient uses no strategies to diminish hallucinations. Patient states he obeys all commands, correct?
Yes.
You also, in a podcast, evidence entitled Identifying Malingering with Dr. Philip Resnick, you were asked about malingering and you said, and asked about hearing voices, and you said, quote, so a common example I'll use in teaching is if you hear a voice out of the blue that says, kill your mother, your moral fiber would cause you to hesitate. But if you have concurrent delusion that your mother is an evil wizard, you're more likely to act on that command to hallucination, correct?
Correct.
And there's no evidence in the records or in the testimony that we've had thus far that Ms. Clancy believed that her children were evil or that they were possessed or that there was any danger posed by them or to them by such forces, correct?
Instead, Ms. Clancy.
Well, it was a yes or no question, Doctor.
No, go ahead. You can answer that.
Instead, Ms. Clancy had the dichotic, distorted belief that her children would be better off in heaven rather than being motherless. So that was her psychotic distortion, coupled with the command hallucination. So she met the exact requirement you're referring to.
What's called her affect, which is her emotional expression or her mood. Generally speaking, there were not many abnormalities in her presentation, and I can go through them. They include the way in which she speaks, that is to say the rapidity of speech, if the speech is made in sort of regular intervals between words. In terms of thought, does the person, and in this case did Ms. Clancy, make goal-directed ideas? Mm-hmm. Was there a particular content of the ideas? So generally speaking, for all the components of the mental status examination, there were not really abnormalities. I would say at some points she seemed distressed by some topics. I believe tearful at one point. She described her general day. She described basically her existence there at Tewksbury.
Okay. And did she indicate to you whether she engaged with other patients, or did she spend her day mostly in bed, or what did she say about that?
Mostly she described she stays in bed or on her own. I don't think she described interacting with patients very much. There were a couple of ways in which she did interact with staff, at least. There was a therapist. She described situational depression in terms of feeling depressed about the several stressors that she experiences today.
And what are those stressors?
Well, the remorse and sadness about the events that this case is about, her separation or estrangement from her then husband, her being separated from the world, her physical injury. My opinion about her diagnosis in the span from 2022 to 2023 is that she suffered from what's called a major depressive episode. That probably is a part of what's called a major depressive disorder, but the important point about it is the major depressive episode.
What made you come to that conclusion based on her presentations?
The information about her feelings and the progression of her illness highlighted that it was best represented by a major depressive episode. It's a condition defined in DSM-5 where an individual displays problems with mood, problems with feeling pleasure, feelings of guilt or worthlessness, problems with appetite, problems with sleep, preoccupation with death or suicide, poor concentration, poor energy, perhaps also what's called psychomotor agitation or retardation. So one doesn't necessarily need to show all of those, but as it is in the DSM criteria sets, one needs to have a certain threshold. And her history and her description of her experience, in my view, matched a major depressive episode.
Okay.
The idea that in the midst of her distress and her impairment, that Child Protective Services or the Child Welfare Agency would act on somehow take away her kids, to speak in a global way, but to somehow interact with her. I don't know that that's psychotic. Another is the idea that she was damaged permanently by the medications that she took. I can appreciate that she felt side effects and a degree of change from the medications that she took. So I don't know that that feeling or that belief is necessarily psychotic. So those are two that I would mention right off the bat. The voice said to the effect of, you should kill the kids. This is your last chance so that you can kill yourself.
And what did she say happened after she heard this voice?
She engaged in the activity of taking her children's lives.
And she was able to describe to you how she did that, correct? And she first stated that she took Dawson down to the basement?
Yes.
And then wrapped the exercise band around his neck and strangled him?
Yes.
And what did she say that she said when she did that?
She described that while that was happening, she was saying out loud, go to God.
And did she describe the same for both Cora and then Callan?
Essentially, yes.
Okay. And the voice that she said she heard, was it one time or more than one time she heard the voice?
Multiple times is what she described.
And after she had killed the kids, did the voice continue in her report?
I don't remember that it did. It may have, I don't remember.
And then after the kids were gone, she then made an effort to take her own life, correct? And how did she do that?
Right, so she did. She described that she went ahead to take her life or attempt to take her life with multiple steps. Yes, she was suffering from a mental disease or defect, namely a major depressive episode as a part of major depressive disorder.
And as far as the substantial capacity to appreciate wrongfulness or criminality of conduct, were you able to come to an opinion to a reasonable degree of medical certainty about that?
Yes.
And what's your opinion regarding that?
that she had retained that capacity.
And what information do you rely upon to come to that conclusion?
The first point is that this was a continuation. Her mental state at that time was a continuation of the mental state she had had for months. And it was a mental state that included the capacity to control her behavior and also to be able to conform her conduct to standards of law. My understanding is that the sentiment, go to God, is a way of bestowing or thinking about the children as innocents and as ones who hadn't done wrong, while what she was doing was the opposite, was wrong, or could be construed as wrong. And so go to God not only was a hope for the children, but also a description of the situation.
Okay. And what about the report from her that the voice was telling her, this is your last chance? Is that significant to identify whether she would have had some knowledge or known that it was something that was wrong?
Well, to the extent that it was seen as her last chance, yes, because there was an awareness that it was something that would be disallowed by their father.
Did she have any records, any witnesses, any documents that she had a resistance to taking medication?
Only her description to me.
She didn't tell you that she was resistant to medication in grammar school and high school and college? What are you, making this up?
Objection.
Yeah, sustain. Next question.
She didn't tell you that.
I understand her to have told me that generally she did not want to be taking medications. She didn't necessarily specify in grammar school, but that is her basic.
College.
Yes, I think that her description was as a adolescent and as a young adult, she was not interested in taking medications.
You really have that written down somewhere?
I'm happy to be proven wrong, but I believe that that's what I understand it to be.
You believe that's what it is? You don't know whether you have it written down somewhere, right?
Can I refer to my report?
Read the whole report. I don't care. Because it's not there.
Well, on page 8, what I had written was, Ms. Clancy's reluctance to take medication generally was accompanied by her concern for medications entering her breast milk. So the general...
Breast milk, she's pregnant. Come on. That's the only time that she indicates that she did not want to take, except for benzos, medication because she was breastfeeding, right?
I don't agree. I'm happy to be proven wrong, but my understanding is that she described that she generally did not want to take medication,
All right.
benzodiazepines included.
Let's not guess. All right. Let's look at Dr. Mack's report. Okay. Medication history. During the period before January 24, 23, she was taking several medications, and that would be Tufts and Gelada and all the rest of them, right?
Okay.
Is that right?
I didn't exactly hear your question. I'm sorry. Can you repeat it?
You said in your report, defendant was taking several medications that had been prescribed for her, right?
In the fall and December of 2022, yes.
So it's real easy. It's Tufts and Gelada that were prescribing these meds, right?
They were among the prescribers, yes.
All right. And her reluctance to take medication was accompanied by her concern for medications entering her what?
I believe it says breast milk.
Breast milk. Okay. So other than her concerns as a mother about her breast milk and having these drugs get into an infant's body, when else did she tell you that she was resistant, as you just told this jury, to taking medication? Like she's somebody who doesn't want to take the medication, doesn't care to take the medication. Where is it?
Overall.
Well, I didn't say that she didn't care.
Okay, how about if she was resistant?
My recollection, and I'm happy to, if you would like me to spend time finding it.
Prove
I'd
you're
be
wrong,
happy
I
to.
know.
What?
Prove you're wrong. It's not in your report, though, is it?
Okay.
Okay, we'll leave it at that.